What does draw a clock mean? It's a screening test for dementia. Successfully drawing a clock, round face with numbers and the long and short hands, is part of a test for cognitive decline like with Alzheimer's and dementia. Someone who suffers from that will mess up the layout or get lost part way through, etc. Presumably the mother-in-law or other family member has had to take the test and may be in decline, or fearing of it. Your brother was accusing them of being mentally unfit, probably implying she has dementia. https://www.verywellhealth.com/theclockdrawingtest98619. My mother was asked to do that when she got brain cancer, as a cognitive function test, and unfortunately what she drew didn't make any sense. She wasn't wrong. It's part of a wellness exam doctors give once a year. You draw a clock and put time at 11:10. They also give 3 words to remember. 5 minutes later they ask you to tell them the words. One thing to keep in mind is that if she does in fact have dementia, then it's time to stop arguing with her about what is and isn't true. You will not convince her. You'll only distress her and cause yourself unnecessary chagrin. He was saying she had dementia. I used to do CNA work. We often used the drawing clock test to check for cognitive deficits. I've done several of these. For a screening, it's like remember 5 words. Name as many animals as possible. You draw a circle and put the numbers in from 12 to 11. Then they say a time and you have to put hands on the clock correctly. At the end you repeat the 5 words from the beginning. I had to do this to get a cleaner from the ADRC. The well-known use is to test for dementia, like others have said, but it's a general cognitive test. It was part of a test I took for a study about strokes earlier this year. I suffered 2 strokes October 2021, and had signed up for the study while I was still in the hospital. I also had to draw a cube, remember some words given to me at the beginning, and repeat them at the end of the test. Verbally list as many words as I could that started with the letter F. Or some other letter. I forget. And maybe some other stuff. Just a PSA for everyone here talking about dementia. There have been studies that show that just walking a mile outdoors every day can help stave off dementia as you get older. Reduce the risk of dementia, specifically if it runs in your family. Ride a bike. Walk outdoors every day. Learn a new physical skill, instrument, language. Those things can help preserve the plasticity of your brain. This is either a nasty person lashing out with a low blow at a truly cognitively declining relative, or a super burn on someone smart enough to understand that the insulter is saying they have a mental handicap. It's brutal because as your memory fails, it means not only the loss of independence, but that those around you consider you less of a human. Your emotions turn into some easily dismissed effect of the disease, not how you really feel, unless they line up with whoever you're talking with thinks you should feel. That especially sucks because strongly negative feelings do a better job of getting in the way of cognitive function than much else. You find yourself in a vicious, destructive loop, only to later observe that you're miserable, without a very clear picture of why. The frustration gets in the way of everything else, and soon ripens into misery, often followed by self-hatred. I know it well because I sustained a brain injury that severely compromised my ability to remember. Years ago, there was a lot of question of whether I'd be able to build a life again. Within that period, I discovered that my greatest drains were that humiliation, and my frustration at recognizing the humiliation as due. Shame was the single strongest factor yanking me towards suicide. If I hadn't recovered, It would have driven me off of the edge. Many people around me believed that they were somehow helping by fostering it. But they really weren't. Away from them, I had a much easier time thinking and functioning. She may not have yet reached this stage. But if she becomes more reactive, remember that the emotional reactivity comes from a constant, subtle sense that something is wrong. The brain keeps assigning the cause to anything that isn't itself. Its constant efforts to figure out the mechanism leave people suffering from a real lack of the cognitive energy needed to quell emotions. And they usually don't consciously recognize it. It's a test for dementia. Neither your brother or his mother-in-law behaved appropriately. But it is a very unkind thing to say. It's part of a dementia test. When I forget anything my son says to me, "Who is the president?" It's another one of the questions on the dementia screener. It's something that seems easy for anyone over 5 years old. But it's actually really challenging for people with dementia, Alzheimer's, memory issues. It's often used as a test when people are looking for signs of those diseases. It's a quick test for brain disorders like dementia. He really upped the ante on "OK Boomer." It's part of a specific mental status exam that tests for declining mental state, called a MoCA, common for dementia and other progressive disorders. One part directs the client to draw a clock and the form of the clock determines certain deficits.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.